I am from Brazil, and we use electronic voting there for 3 elections already. On a mixed state of electronic and paper voting. My question would be, have you seen the other systems based on electronic voting thing, or just trying to remake the well?
Well, as I understand the Brazilian systems, as they were shown to me, they are specifically heinous because you enter your ID, your identification card number, on the machine that you are subsequently voting on. So you're basically not only trusting software to produce the right election results, but you're also placing a much larger percentage of the ballot secrecy in the hands of software that you can't verify. Now, I've been explained the system by somebody that was actually a big fan of it because he had built large parts of it. And they explained to me that yes, everybody could come by and inspect the process of how they built the software, and the builds were actually from published code, and they were public builds where they would download components in public view and do stuff, and it was on. So they have attempted at least to have people look at the actual process from published code to getting that on the devices. But he himself also said, well, if the US government wanted to screw with us and just give us processors that are manipulated or memory chips manipulated, or if, then we would never know. So it only protects against sort of the low-level attack. And I don't think that process of scrutiny is as watertight as he was painting it to be. But there is at least that, but I don't like the idea of typing your... Is it really true? Did you type your personality, your ID card number into this device before voting?
No. Actually, there is a person to check if you voted or not. You present your ID to her. She opens the machine for 1 vote, which is anonymous.
Okay.
Then you go to the machine and vote, which is also anonymous. And besides the electronic voting, it's printed your vote, so you can make a paper check.
Uh-huh. What? Oh, I just heard the ID card was Venezuela. No, but anyway, but it's not really that central. Yes, over there. You can just shout and I'll there's the mic already.
Whatever. So there's a lot of attention in the academic community towards some of the crypto-based sort of e-voting systems like Scratch and Vote or Prêt-à-Voter. Have you guys looked at any of those and have any opinions about them?
Yes, I've looked at all of them. Scantegrity, 3Ballot, all these systems. They're all cryptographic systems which allow for something that is end-to-end verifiability, where the voter can verify that their particular vote was counted as cast. I've looked at all of them, and I figure that if you cannot explain the voting system to 99.999% of the population, then that voting system doesn't meet the requirements for a voting system. Some of these schemes are really nice and intricate. I'm not sure our current way of verifying an election, which is to send observers and to watch the process of all the votes being counted, if that can be replaced, because you'd have to really replace it by individual voters verifying that their vote was counted correctly. I'm not sure it translates one-on-one. I'm not sure you could do this in a country where a large percentage of the population is illiterate or has never touched a computer. I'm not sure you can do this in a country where the experts that would be monitoring such a system or that would be watching the source code would even live in that country. So I see huge problems in translating those results to the population, generally. I don't doubt that some of these systems are very interesting. In fact, some of them are very interesting. But I just see problems in implementing. And also, I have yet to become convinced that there is actually a huge problem that needs solving. If we're going to be using computers in our society, and if we want to be more modern as a society, there are so many places where I see a screaming need for networks, computers, IT, and in this particular field, this one particular field, I do not see that need. I do not see how we can get a system that works as well and is as distributed. We don't really understand bottom-up trust, the trust that comes from having 40,000 people do something. I don't think we have an analog process that has that kind of trust sort of trickling up instead of trickling down, where you basically have one system and the government says, well, trust us, it's really good, or trust these 10 experts, it's really good. I just don't think that's equivalent. So that's sort of my take on the new electronic systems, as interesting as they may be as a research subject. Yeah.
Yes, I'd like to get back to the voting machines in Germany, and especially the German government.
The next talk is on voting machines in Germany.
Yes, I cannot see whether they were blind to what happened in the Netherlands. So is there any sort of statement known from the German governments concerning what has happened in the Netherlands so far?
I think that's all in the next talk. But what I suggest is, we're now, what, 8 minutes early? What I suggest is for the next talk to start, and we sort of put these 8 minutes towards the debate after that, because then everybody's even more informed. No? Oh, starting early is really bad, okay. Then we'll just go on with the questions here. Does anybody else have a question? Yes?
Do you think that these electronic voting systems can augment traditional voting? So can they augment it without gradually evolving to replace it, evolving to have some sort of dependence?
Can electronic voting augment regular paper voting? I don't think so. This is an argument made often by people that believe in internet voting or that believe in electronic voting in general. It's like, why don't we have all systems at the same time? So if you want your ballot secrecy, you can vote in a polling station, and if you don't, then you have the freedom to vote at home. The thing is, I do not depend so much on my own ballot secrecy. I depend on the ballot secrecy of everybody else. The quality of my government goes down if all the others don't have ballot secrecy, no matter whether I have it or not. So as long as you depend for your government on somebody else's vote, this whole line of argumentation of let's just have multiple systems and then everybody can choose just doesn't cut it for me.
So, yeah, one observation from the video of the new proposed system is that the paper went in, it was scanned, it counted, and then it came out the other side. I was election monitor during the May 2007 elections in UK, where they used an electronic counting system. How it actually worked was the papers went in, they got shredded, they got turned around, they scanned the back of them. The OCR didn't work, so it went to a manual person. About 25% were manually counted, and votes were counted multiple times in this system, which was doing the adjudication.
Yeah,
so
how they think they're going to be feeding a stack of paper that has been handled by voters and crumpled, folded, bent, how they're going to be feeding that into a scanner and think they're going to get anywhere near a good score on that, I don't know. Really, they're solving, as far as I'm concerned, a problem that doesn't exist, and they're creating much bigger problems than the ones they're supposed to be solving.
One of the issues which we don't have in the Dutch system is that we don't have to put a lot of votes at the same time. In the Hamburg elections, people will have to vote really a number of times at the same time, and then the time to count those votes is much more important in the costs of the elections than is in the whole Dutch system.
Well, the Dutch system has a huge ballot, but we only vote for one candidate per election. So it's many candidates, one vote. And in Hamburg, they have not so many candidates, but they have a lot of votes. Basically, the people of Hamburg have complicated their voting system to the point that they can now rightfully claim that it's hard for humans to count the votes. I'm not sure that is a good argument to use electronics in voting, because then at the end you'll end up with humongously complicated systems. I tend to be for very simple voting systems. If people want to use more complicated voting systems, fine. However, I'm not willing to trade transparency for that, and I advise anybody from trading transparency for a more complicated voting system. It's really not worth having 20 votes if that means you will never again know whether the results are correct, and you'll never again be able to know whether the results are correct. One in the back. I have no audio.
If there's no real problem to be solved, and I think we can pretty much agree on that, and if also the reason we got democracies in the first place is that we all thought that having 40,000 people agree on something is better than just 10 experts and the rest have to trust them. If those two basic things are true, then why do we keep allowing ourselves to be drawn into the discussions on all kinds of technical details, which are, as far as I can see it, not relevant to the sort of the core point, which is there's no problem to be solved, so why are we doing this? B, you know, we have a democracy.
I asked myself this very question in Holland. Do I want to be arguing with them on a technical level? I think the approach was partly lazy, which is strange to say because we spent 1.5 years working really, really hard with 10 people. But the approach was basically lazy. We know that we could win on these technical arguments, even though we ourselves felt that they really didn't matter. But the technical arguments coming from us were really hard to counteract, if not impossible to counteract, because they basically could not find anybody that was willing to say that our analysis was wrong. They couldn't find technical people in all of the Netherlands that were willing to say, well, yeah, it's really good enough to be doing it without a paper.
But you keep getting drawn into the discussion, then we'll say,
oh, we'll
have paper printers, or we'll do this little device, or we'll do that different.
We made those principal points all during the discussion, and we keep making them. We're still not gone.
Well, I mean, but also here, many of the questions keep going back to technical details and seem to be oblivious about the fact that you just explained, I think, rather well, that it's these two sort of higher order points that are beyond the level of technology that are really should be reason enough to just say, stop this insanity, stop it.
Yeah,
so why is it that we, all of us here, can't sort of say, you know?
I think we are. I think we are. All of us are saying, let's get rid of this technology altogether. I was actually accused by SDU that I was pro-NADAP because I was trying to get rid of them first. At which point I said, well, look, we're not out to kill your company or anything, we're out to kill your entire industry. And I think this is still true, this still holds true. I think, however, that they are using technical arguments to keep these systems around. Yes, but it's very transparent or it's very secure. And without the technical counter-arguments to basically say, well, but that's all not true. Without these technical counter-arguments, it just becomes a bunch of Luddites saying, well, we shouldn't be using this technology because it's fundamentally wrong. Even though in this particular case I agree, I think using the technical arguments has gotten us where we are. Which is not to say that we should be making these fundamental arguments every time, and we are. Any further questions? One last one. No? Well, then I give up the stage to Frank and Constanze.